Good day and welcome to a special edition of the Gazette. My name is Sheldon March. Tonight we'll be having a roundtable discussion of the recent reform of the Fraudulent Special Provisions Act, more popularly known as the Anti-Lottery Scam Act. Several controversial topics of interest has risen since the passing of the act. One such controversy is the concern with extradition of the Jamaican citizens to the United States. We have today a four-person panel. To my left, we have Ms. Vanessa Knowles. She is the anti-corruption analyst. Also with her is Ms. Rochelle Ann Watson. She is the international legal relations representative. And to my right, we have Davia Kenton, the public relations analyst, and Ms. Shanice Solan, attorney at law. As you can see, the panel is comprises of four very powerful females with equally strong and yet opposing views with the extradition issue. The public responded very strongly to the arrest of a key player in the lottery scam, with many uprisings in the resort town of Montego Bay. The issue we will look at is the rights of the citizens as well as procedural fairness and the rule of law. Ms. Kenton, we'll start with you. You shared with me earlier, off stage, a view about the extradition. Can you expound on that?
It is my belief that offenders ought to be punished. However, extradition is not the right means of doing so. Scammers ought to be tried and convicted here in Jamaica. My main concern is that the government has shunned their role as our protectors. It is embedded in our constitution that Parliament is supposed to make laws for peace, order, and good government of Jamaica. In them allowing for the extradition of our citizens, they have ignored their duty as the protectors of our rights. It is the 435 congressmen and women and the 100 senators that are elected to serve America that is interested in their rights, not ours. Unless ours do the Peter Tosh thing and stand up for our rights by telling the Americans what we want for the treaty, they will simply focus on their own interests, as they're required to.
Exactly. In the same way, KD Knight, my colleague, laments that Jamaica is enacting legislation to protect the United States while the courtesy is not reciprocated.
Fight this. I believe that all culprits should be extradited, and the Law Reform Act outlines the facilitation and the process of this extradition. The magnitude of the crime is not felt emotionally and economically in Jamaica per se. Thus, the culprits should be extradited to USA and to face the consequences as well as their victims.
And you know, I've been following up closely on this issue, and recently I came across an article in the Gleaner, and it was entitled "Extradite Scammers. U.S. Senators Blast Jamaica for Slow Action to Combat Lottery Scam." In the article, Susan Collins was educating the members of the Senate committee during a hearing, saying that an estimated 30,000 phone calls are made daily by Jamaican scammers, who she described as masters of manipulation, who play to their victims' fears and emotions until they drain them of every single dime.
How can it be said that the emotional and economical effects of scamming are not felt in Jamaica, when evidently scamming has had even a greater impact on our Jamaican society? Police report that close to 700 murders may be linked to the lottery scam, facilitated by the unchecked flow of guns from North America. As Al Francis 2003 posits that the impact of crime is a whopping 4% of our GDP. Simply put, the lottery scam and the guns, which are imported from overseas, have a greater impact on Jamaica than they do in the US.
Exactly. Now, how can the government, after being so vigilant as to what leaves our country, after strip searching national honoree, sports icons, and advocate of the disabled, Sarah Newton Martin, who has been subject of Newton Martin, who has been subject to humiliating search? True, she's not a sexy young woman, and her name isn't to marry, but what we did to her is worse than what they did to her. She served our country for 40 years, At least the Bajans did not know who she was. We do not look after our own.
Exactly. For the past 7 years, since the Justice Minister quietly signed the extradition order for Ramcharan and others, it has been my contention that the government has not been vigilant enough in focusing on Jamaican interests. A baffled upper veteran, Frank Phipps, could only remark, the minister must again have acted with unseemly haste when signing the warrant to allow William's removal on a Sunday morning. It is my sincere wish that the government of Jamaica will exhibit more concern and consideration for the best interests of the citizens of this country in preference to the interests of another country.
I hear what you're saying, my colleagues, and I understand. However, the magnitude of the lottery scam situation is far exceeding the resources that the Jamaican justice system has available to deal with this dilemma. This, I believe, also is as a result of the backlog of the cases which are faced in the justice system. Justice is more likely to be served sooner in America than it is down here. Thus, they should be extradited.
So what about the right to a fair trial? Doesn't that impose on one's constitutional right to impose the due process?
Exactly, and I'm glad to interject here. In every court of law, a trial, the issues of fairness and justice has to be a key point. And I'll go on to say that the right to a fair privilege in Jamaica is guaranteed by the Constitution. Therefore, if we extradite our Jamaican scammers to the US, how can we be sure that they will be guaranteed a fair trial? Right. US has been foaming from the mouth for over 6 years now to get a hold of these scammers. So what guarantee will we have that they will be treated fairly when they are extradited?
Exactly. Now, to what degree can you call yourself a protector when you hand over these Jamaican scammers to the US?
And if we think back to May 2010, the Tivoli incursion, all of this trail of death and destruction happened because of an extradition request. And we would not want to repeat of this.
Exactly.
And the idea for repeat is not far-fetched, because how many persons would just willingly give up their brothers, sisters, or even sons to be extradited? A repeat of this is not far-fetched, trust me.
Jamaica had been given ample time, 7 years at that, to deal with the issue. It is not now that we are learning about it. It has been in existence for a long time. However, Jamaica has decided to turn a blind eye, and has failed to address their citizens officially or to address this overall issue in general at hand. The mere fact that US is now asking for the culprits at the point at which the situation has been out of control, they have all rights to extradite and thus deal with the situation or culprits themselves.
Major William King, Chief Sheriff Deputy in New York County, he commended Jamaica for the way they have been fighting against the lottery scam. He said Jamaica does have a concerted strategy, and I'm quoting here, increase operation, public education and legislation. I would have at least liked to see us have a similar strategy. Perhaps we don't need the legislation, but at least have a strategic plan in place on how we're going to collaborate with Jamaicans to get the information in a timely fashion.
Exactly, and if you see here, this proves that the Jamaican government is in fact taking steps to combat the lottery scam. Major King speaks of coercion, where we work together, and this is the most plausible thing that we can do right now.
Exactly. There may not have been a legislation, however, the government was working to combat this crime.
Seriously at that.
Focus on this issue, however, is based on the justice system. And the fact of the matter is, not much confidence, very little confidence, is given or put in our Jamaican justice system. This is because the system lacks necessary expertise and experience in relation to matters of such nature, that is, the fraudulent nature. And clearly, the US government, they have conducted researches and they are adequately equipped to deal with matters of this nature.
Yes, that is true. But what about the Grand Jamaica? Wouldn't the extradition help the impact we face as a nation?
You need to be mindful that Grand Jamaica is more of an economic situation where we deal with tourism. Now, tourism does not make up Jamaica. It contributes significantly, but it's not wholeheartedly about tourism. It's about the people at the end of the day. And if we look at the tourism dollars over the need, how can we be right? We need to address the fairness, the equity of it all.
Exactly.
Jamaica cannot be the sole reason why we're going to extradite our Jamaican
Exactly.
citizens.
Now, do you mean to tell me that Grand Jamaica is more important than the constitutional rights
Exactly.
of our citizens?
So a fair trial, exactly.
Alright, so some very important points have been made, but at the end we need to come to a common consensus. Both parties agree that the scammers should be punished by the full extent of the law. It is safe to conclude that depending on the magnitude of the case, there should be some specified provisions or grounds to warrant the extradition. Extradition in Jamaica is a recurring problem that has seen much publicity in recent years. The Jamaican government seems to be faced with the act of balancing the protection of the individual's rights against that of the United States victims. What is the government telling us? Extradition is something that is agreed upon between two countries, not imposed. The provisions within the treaty should be acknowledged or amended. A common ground for extradition is that the court proceedings ought to have equal influence of both countries. So, with that said, we wrap things up. I would like to thank our panel guests today, Vanessa Knowles, Rochelle Watson, Ada Kenton, and Shani Solan. I'd also like to thank the viewers for tuning in, and a special thanks to our guests again. My name is Sheldon March, and until next time.